Petrovaradin fell to Grand Vizier Ibrahim's army on the 27th of July 1526, after what was left of the garrison attempted a breakout, motivated by an alleged sighting of King Louis II's army nearby. The king and his small portion of the army had only left Buda on the 24th of July. Soon after they left Buda, the king's favorite horse died. Some took that as a bad omen. As had happened during the events of 1521, the king's army was slowed by the fact that it only gathered strength while on the move, and as new commanders joined the army, the war council's debates lengthened. Under the advice of the war council, the king had issued orders to Voivod Janos Zapoля of Transylvania to attack the Ottomans through Vlachia and threaten the Sultan's flank, in the hope to draw off part of his force. Those orders were countermanded a few days later, ordering the voivod to join the king's army, only to be countermanded again with orders to proceed into Vlachia, which were then countermanded again with orders to join the king, and understandably after this Zapoля had had enough. He stopped his army and demanded to be given clear instructions, which arrived mid-August, to join the king, as it was now too late to attempt to draw off part of the Sultan's army eastwards. On the 23rd of August, Sultan Suleiman crossed the Drava River. On the same day, the king's army arrived at a field near Mohač, where they would wait for the rest of the army. Archbishop Tomori had recently joined the king with the forces he took out of Petrovaradin before the siege. The king was also expecting more units from Bohemia and a few contingents from Poland and from Germany. But the most significant forces under Voivod Zapoля, the Croatian and Slavonian army under Ban Bafani, and the Croatian and hopefully German troops under Krsto Frankopan, who had only recently returned from Germany to Croatia mid-August, sans German troops, were still on their way. Both Voivod Zapoля and Krsto Frankopan strongly advised King Louis to not give battle until they arrived. Chancellor Brodarić writes, after the fact, that he himself advised the king to retreat either to Buda or as far as Pressburg and wait for reinforcements, saying that a retreat would do less damage than a defeat, even if the Turk were to ransack the whole of Hungary. At Mohač, the war council debated the fateful question, whether or not to give battle against a far larger force. While there were some misgivings among some of the commanders and magnates, most of them and most of the minor nobility had apparently convinced themselves in the inevitability of victory. A hunger for battle was also present among soldiers. Apparently some soldiers from Archbishop Tomori's camp even threatened to attack the king's army if there was even a whiff of retreat. But to not follow the old narrative of overconfidence completely and give them some benefit of the doubt, what would a retreat do? It might save this disorganized and disunited mass that called itself an army, but it would open up the heart of the kingdom to tens of thousands of Ottoman raiders, creating long-term damage. That was a certainty. What did it matter if the army survived? There was no guarantee that it could be reassembled to fight another day. But the Ottomans would continue to grind down the army and the realm as they had done for decades. But if battle was given, there was a chance to turn things around, a chance to lob the head off of the snake and send the Ottoman Sultanate into chaos, buying at least a few years of peace. The horrible certainty offered by the retreat versus the hopeful chance of victory. And all of those who were clamoring for battle had time on their side. With each hour that the war councils dragged on, a retreat became more and more dangerous and battle inevitable. The Sultan's army was drawing closer, and when patrols began skirmishing, a retreat was near impossible. and while Ottoman forces rested, King Louis's army stood at the ready for several days and nights, expecting an attack. But the days of debate had also meant that little to no defensive preparations had been made, and the advice of one of the Polish mercenary commanders to prepare trenches and war wagons went unheeded, as those would only hinder the army if a move was ordered. On the 28th of August, Ban Bafani finally arrived with his Croatian and Slavonian army. It had been delayed due to the estates of Slavonia refusing to march until it was certain that the Sultan had crossed the Drava and would not attack them. It is estimated that at this point King Louis's army numbered around 25,000 troops. There were various kinds of infantry and some cannons that had arrived on riverboats from Vienna, but the majority of the army was light cavalry. The decades of the border war had forced many of the medieval knights to discard their armor in order to be able to chase Ottoman raiders, and the raids had also decreased income and increased the costs of military maintenance. But I digress. King Louis also lacked military command experience, so command was given, forced on, Archbishop Tomory and the voivode's brother George Zápolya, both of whom protested that they also lacked experience in commanding a large army against an even larger enemy force. They reluctantly accepted command after being told that Voivode Zápolya and Frankopan would take over command as soon as they arrived. The Ottoman forces advanced closer to the king's army on the 29th of August and camped out on a few nearby hills. The Sultan is assumed to have wanted the army to rest and attack the next morning. But suddenly, King Louis's army attacked. Archbishop Tomory, believing that a smaller Ottoman force had separated itself from the Sultan's army, urged the king to attack it. Engaging a part of the army now is better than the whole army tomorrow. The attack routed the smaller force, but upon realizing that the Sultan's army was much closer than they had assumed, the only option left was to turn and charge. As the army fell into chaos around him, the young King Louis rallied his cavalry and led several charges directly for the Sultan. He failed to break through the enemy line. In less than 2 hours, King Louis's army was destroyed. 10,000 men were massacred. Thousands of minor nobles perished in and after battle, along with 25 magnates and 7 prelates, among whom were George Zápolya, Archbishop Szalkai, and Archbishop Tomory, whose head was taken as a prize by the Sultan, while the Judge Royal John Dragfe was allegedly found still clutching the royal banner in his dead hands. Suleiman waited for 3 more days at Mohacs, waiting to see if any reinforcements would come to the king's army, but none came. One story says that the Sultan wondered, was this it? Was this all there was of that rich and prosperous realm that had defied the Ottoman sultans since the days of King Louis I, the Great? As for the young Louis II, Jagiellon, King of Hungary, of Bohemia, of Dalmatia, Croatia, and Slavonia, of Rama, of Serbia, Galicia, Lodomeria, Cumania, and Bulgaria, Prince of Silesia and of Luxembourg, Margrave of Moravia and of Upper and Lower Lusatia. He escaped the battle and rode to save his life, but fell off of his horse and drowned in his armor in a stream not far from the battlefield. This event marks the end of the Middle Ages for this part of Europe, and with this milestone, I would like to thank everyone who's been following me for these past 6 years. Thank you all for watching, and see you again very soon, when this history continues. And a little digression before you go. According to an Ottoman chronicle, apparently at some point in the 50 to 100 years after the battle, the locals at Mohacs would refer to the hill that Sultan Suleiman occupied as the Emperor's Hill, and the stream where King Louis drowned as the King's Stream.